All right, it's 5 p.m. I want to call the meeting for Community Development Committee for special meeting to order. It's June 18th, 2026. We'll start with roll call, please.
Diana Delaney. Here. Danny Erickson.
Here.
Bob Swanepoel.
Here.
Carrie Rice.
Here.
Scott Counter.
Present. All right, so we have, everyone is here tonight. We have a quorum. We did, originally we took, because this is not our regular meeting, this is kind of a work group committee meeting. We normally, during work group committee meetings with the county, don't have public comment. It's mostly to, if they're non-decision-making things, we typically eliminate it for those types of meetings because it's more for us to learn and to bring ourselves up to speed so that we can make sound decisions from the help of staff. And then we had the public comment, extensive public comment last week. But because there's so much interest in the subjects that are going on here, I did add public comment back into it. So we are open for public comment this evening. We're going to limit it again to 3 minutes, and please be cognizant of that. If there's a lot of repetition, please try to eliminate as much repetition of the exact same things. We do open and we do respect everybody that's here that wants to do public comment and bring stuff to the table for us. It's important for us to hear your thoughts, where you're at with this, with all these different subjects, and do the right, so that we can hopefully do the right things. So with that in mind, as we do public comment, I'll be calling off the names for now for the ones that did send in comment cards. And I'd like you to come up, state your name and your address for the record. And again, just keep it to 3 minutes, please, and try not to be repetitive if possible. So the first one for this evening is Celeste Coberl. Well, Celeste, while she's doing that, we'll put her in second here. So the second one I have then, and this is for Lake Malibu Drawdown and the data centers, Everett Bud Fuchs, sorry, Bud.
Yeah, my name is Bud Fuchs. I live at 1724 Laurel Avenue in Hudson. Do I have 3 minutes for both topics? Or just, do I do one and then come back to do the other? I don't think I can do both in 3 minutes. I can maybe, okay. Okay, first I will address the Lake Malibu situation. I've boiled down my top 10 list, which you heard last time, to a final 4 list. So I offer this perspective, and I've tried to really simplify. I think the decisions come down to 4 key things: clean water, fiscal responsibility, legal compliance, and local control. In terms of clean water, a yes vote is a vote for the St. Croix River. A no vote is a vote to flush thousands of pounds of phosphorus into the St. Croix to grow more toxic blue-green algae and more floating mats of noxious filamentous algae. Number 2, fiscal responsibility. A yes vote, this is a vote to rescind the conditional approval. A yes vote is a vote for fiscal responsibility and a vote to protect the benefits gained from the $4.4 million already invested by the County Land and Water Program and best management practices in the watershed. A no vote is a vote to undercut and negate the significant reductions of phosphorus to the river achieved over the last 12 years by the county land and water program from the $4.4 million of taxpayers' money invested in best management practices. Number 3, legal compliance. A yes vote is a vote for legal compliance to uphold the public trust doctrine and protect the water, fish, and wildlife for the 99.92% of county residents who love the St. Croix River and do not live on Lake Malibu. A no vote is a vote to ignore legal compliance and fail to uphold the public trust doctrine for the 0.08% of county residents living on Lake Malibu who are seeking a leap before you look lake drawdown based on a strong belief that is not supported and is even contradicted by scientific information, including information collected by their own consultant. Number 4 is local control. A yes vote is a vote to retain local control to protect the St. Croix River, which we all love and which is vital to our local environment, our quality of life, and our economy. A no vote is a vote to cede control of the St. Croix River to some faceless bureaucrats in Madison who will make a political decision to get themselves off the hot seat regarding the dam breach by giving the Lake Malibu Association what they want, which is drawdown approval. In your summary, your choices are 1, a cleaner St. Croix River or more pollution and algae. 2, fiscal responsibility or fiscal irresponsibility. 3, voluntary legal compliance or risk a lawsuit. 4, local control or Madison control. Your choice, your vote. I have another 10 seconds on this topic if you want to allow me that, and then I probably have half a minute on data center, but I'll quit now if that's what I need to do.
Did you have your other subject too, Bud?
Excuse me?
Did you get both of your,
I haven't talked about the data center yet,
okay,
but I do have another, well, I have another 15 seconds on water quality on the St. Croix River Lake Malibu issue. If you want to hear that, you might have heard it already, but
15 seconds, Bud, and then
Okay.
please move on to the next one
okay.
after that.
Instead of a confrontational, divisive approach and a leap before you look drawdown, let's do a look before you leap approach that will address the concerns of the Lake Malibu Association, but in the broad context of the entire Willow River watershed in the St. Croix River. Let's establish a work-study group and strive to bring together stakeholders to address concerns of all the stakeholders with regard to the Willow River watershed in the St. Croix River. Let's unite the conservation community for the benefit of all county citizens, including those who live on Lake Malibu. Cooperation and collaboration among all stockholders are a more efficient and effective path forward. Thank you. Now, it probably actually take me another minute in data centers, but I can sit down if that's what you need me to do.
Do you want to move on to the data center one?
Yeah, I can do that.
Go ahead and do that then right now.
Now, in terms of data centers, I wore my baseball cap today because I used to play a lot of baseball back when I was much younger. And you might ask, why am I bringing up baseball? You know, have I gone senile? I don't think I've gone senile at least as much as I can tell. But anyway, here's the thing. When you're a hitter in baseball, you always watch the opposing pitcher when he warms up. You want to find out if he has a wicked curveball or not. And if he has a wicked curveball, you want to move way up in the batter's box to hit the ball before it curves. It's called getting ahead of the curve. I would recommend you do the same thing with data centers. get ahead of the curve with a moratorium. I don't think a year moratorium is too long. Seattle just did a year moratorium. And I think I sent everybody an article on that. So thank you.
Thank you. And Celeste?
I apologize for not getting my phone turned off. Celeste Cobrell, Town of Hudson, resident on Lake Malibu since 1993. I have a question. My understanding is that tonight's meeting was noticed as a meeting of the committee, not just as a work session. I looked at the county website, and I believe it was noticed as a meeting. So I hope that you will, in fact, take action regarding Agenda Item 1, which is a resolution to rescind the approval of the application to the DNR for the proposed drawdown of Lake Malibu. And I submitted a suggested substitute resolution, which I hope is the one that someone will move. When I was nonpartisan staff for the Minnesota House, it was not unreasonable for a person to move to strike all and substitute. The reason that I offered that substitute resolution is because what is before the committee on the question of whether or not to rescind the approval for the application to the DNR is a matter of policy guidance, which is your committee's job. Under the rules of the Board of Supervisors, all committees are charged with providing policy guidance to the departments that they're responsible for, and under the rules for the Community Development Committee, that includes the Community Development Department. And as the permission was granted, it, as I understand it, retained authority for the county to rescind. And I am asking that you exercise that option to rescind because you have learned over the course of your previous hearings or meetings on this matter that the effects of going ahead with the drawdown conflict with established county policy. You have an established county policy which shows up in all of your comprehensive planning documents, your general county comprehensive plan, also your outdoor recreation plan, to reduce phosphorus loading to the St. Croix River and to Lake St. Croix. That also shows up in your programs regarding participation in the 2012 TMDL plan for Lake St. Croix. And if you vote to rescind, if you use the substitute motion, which focuses on policy and focuses on the effects of going ahead being counter to the expenditure of staff time and money, you are also exercising the option that is already in the permission that has been granted by Community Development Department. So please do move the substitute resolution and do vote to rescind. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Next, we have Sue Curtis. And again, you're speaking on moratorium and on Lake Malibu.
Thank you. Appreciate the public comment. So after the last several months of commentary and research by members of St. Croix Cures, our position on the drawdown has not changed. In fact, we have learned of additional information that substantiates our claim that a drawdown of Lake Malibu will cause serious ecological harm. Please rescind the application. The second comment I have is on the data center. I sent an email later on today. Last weekend I attended 2 events on the topic of data centers in Eau Claire. It was a way to connect community folks, to hear from people that have been dealing with data center issues throughout the state of Wisconsin, mostly in the southern. That's where things happen first, right? Usually, and then we get it after. And what I heard is that transparency and community involvement was really important, and that was the reoccurring theme. And what I came away with was a list of resource people. I have samples of moratoriums, 12, 18, 6 to 8 months moratoriums that I attached a few to the email today. my recommendation is that we look to a moratorium just mainly to give us time and pause to think this through, to make sure that we are getting everything right. Some might be concerned that adopting a data center moratorium might send the wrong message to businesses in St. Croix County that we're closed for business. But I look at it another way. I look at this message as we want to protect our community. We believe in its people and what they can do to help us. If we study this issue and we involve stakeholders, we can make a well-researched and planned zoning ordinance. I'm talking about hyperscale data centers here. I highly encourage using the vehicle of a moratorium for time to consider ordinances so that you can cite mid to large hyperscale data centers in your ordinance. And again, there was attached samples and then a list of resources from that workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. So now we'll be moving into the ones that just had the Lake Malibu drawdown. The first one we have is Mark White.
Thank you. I'm Mark White. I'm the Natural Resources Manager for Wild Rivers Conservancy of the St. Croix and Namakagon. And we have presented written comments and verbal comments to this committee a couple times in the past, but I just wanted to go through a series of 5 slides and hopefully add a little bit more depth to help you understand why we oppose the drawdown and ask you to rescind authorization for the drawdown. Could I get the next slide, please? So the Lake Malibu drawdown authorization is really a permission slip for what will be the largest point source discharge of a regulated pollutant to the St. Croix River in documented history. And so we're asking you not to allow the Lake Malibu Association to become that polluter and to defeat millions of dollars of work that's being done throughout the watershed to reduce phosphorus loading to Lake St. Croix, the only impaired section of the St. Croix River. So just to point out a few things, the Wild Rivers Conservancy for the last 2 years has been working with the DNR in 9 counties in Wisconsin to develop a 10-year summary of the progress that's been made towards reducing phosphorus loading to Lake St. Croix, and also to come up with the plan to implement the TMDL for the next 10 years. There's a couple of, could we go back to that? Thank you. It's a monstrous figure right there, but I did highlight a few things that I think are important for this committee to see. One is the Hudson Wastewater Treatment Facility has a waste load allocation of 5,839 pounds per year. The average over the last 10 years for that facility are 2,426 pounds per year. The total amount of phosphorus allocated for point source discharges to the St. Croix River and ending up in Lake St. Croix is 34,034.97 pounds of phosphorus. And if you do the calculations, the average amount of phosphorus that all of those 25 point sources contribute to the pollution of Lake St. Croix, this one project is approximately 5 times that amount. I would beg you to allow me to finish my next 3 slides.
Go ahead.
Okay, we can go on to my next slide, please. It's been called into question whether Stantec's numbers or the Conservancy's numbers can be trusted in guiding your decision. So I just wanted to point out really the only factor that is in contention in calculating the total phosphorus loading to Lake St. Croix as a part of this project is the dry bulk density factor. But there are a total of 5 factors that are used and multiply to come up with the total phosphorus transported downstream through this project. So on this slide, you can see that there are 2 conversion factors. They're number 2 and number 5. Those are not in contention at all. Anybody can look them up. They're just simple conversion factors between units. There are 2 factors that have been provided by Stantec in their sediment transport model and in the work that they've done to look at the chemistry of the sediments in Lake Malilu, and neither of those are in contention either. But in red is the factor that Stantec never studied and has produced what we believe to be a gross underestimate of the number for the bulk density of phosphorus in that sediment. So we have gone to the trouble of looking at the sediment transport model that Stantec has produced and breaking down the grain size distribution of the sediment in the samples that they took and the samples that they used for their sediment transport model and the sediment that they used for their chemical analysis. And we have found that the total dry bulk density for that sediment is somewhere between 1.55 and 1.75 grams per cubic centimeter. When you use that bulk density estimate and multiply it by those other 4 factors, you get between 21,123 pounds and 4,697 pounds of phosphorus that will be transported downstream by this project and end up in Lake St. Croix. Next slide, please. So is the estimate produced by Stantec for that by dry bulk density accurate? So not only is that number nowhere in the study that was cited by Stantec, and not only did the authors of that study in their conclusions point out that the Lake Pepin sediments is a unique system in terms of its sediment and sediment bulk density. But this morning, I communicated via email to Adam Heathcote. He has a PhD and is the director of the Department of Water and Climate Change for the St. Croix Watershed Research Station. And I asked him if he believed that Lake Pepin sediment should be used as a scientifically valid analog to the sediment in the delta region of Lake Malilu. And this is his reply. I do not understand why Lake Pepin would be chosen as an analog for Malilu, as they are very different lake systems with significantly different watersheds. The most defensible approach would be to collect bulk sediments from the site in question and measure dry bulk density directly to ensure that any potential sediment load estimates are accurate. So we strongly question the rationale behind using Stantec's dry bulk density number and would advocate for you to rescind your authorization until, at the very least, this type of dry bulk density study can be done and the amount of phosphorus loading to Lake St. Croix can be accurately and definitively estimated. I also wanted to point out, this is my last slide. I'm sorry that I'm going over time. The DNR has already tentatively approved this project, and the public comment period has expired. From the public notice published in the Star Observer on August 14th, 2025, the department has made a tentative determination that it will authorize the proposed drawdown activity. If you are submitting general comments on the proposal, they must be emailed, verbalized, or postmarked within 30 days after the date of this notice is published in the department's website. That period has long expired. I don't see that there's any opportunity beyond this decision of this committee to actually stop this drawdown from happening and for this historic level of pollution to be added to the St. Croix River. And I would be happy to answer any other questions that the committee has. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Gosovich.
I'm John Gostovich. I live in the town of Hudson on Lake Malibu, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk for just 2 minutes tonight, hoping that you all don't tire of me coming to so many meetings with so much to talk about. The county policy is clear that it is the goal of this governing body to reduce the amount of phosphorus in public waters. And the county has made significant investments working with farmers, municipalities, water treatment facilities, the gamut of point and non-point source polluters to achieve those goals over the years. The figure $4.5 million is off-cited by people. To undo that or to move in the other direction seems to be going obviously against what is county policy for all of us. I think it's fair to say that the Lake Malibu Association, and I am a member, but I am certainly not trying to speak for the association, has presented virtually no persuasive argument demonstrating the benefits and goodness that will come from this proposal, the help it will do for public waters, for recreation, for aquatic plants, for the fisheries. There is none of that in their application and in their testimony whatsoever. I am worried that if the drawdown begins, this is a bell that cannot be unrung. The phosphorus will flow into Lake St. Croix. The aquatic plant community will be further devastated. We will have an algal bloom next summer following the drawdown, the likes of which we have never seen. And this is not my opinion. This is what the aquatic plant specialists for the DNR have said we can look forward to. Algae. It's a little bit like the reflecting pond in Washington. And in the absence of a really serious reason to take this risk, remembering that the bell simply cannot be unrung, I urge you to work with county staff to rescind the proposal, to support county policy, and to support the good work that Ken and Jason and all of their employees have done upstream for years to keep our public waters clean, fishable, swimmable. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Deb Bayer. Am I saying that right? I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Debbie Beyer, 872 Benoit Road, Hudson, Wisconsin, and thank you for this time. I would like to just voice support for rescinding the authorization for the drawdown on Lake Malibu, simply because it really does not make any sense. Don't even have to get into the technical aspects of things. It doesn't make sense to take pollution from one body of water and let it flow into another even larger body of water. As John was just saying, we can't undo that once it's done. There's got to be ways to deal with the pollution in Lake Malibu that would be a win-win situation rather than creating impairments in Lake St. Croix, which is just a treasured resource for so many people and brings, for lack of a better term, I'll just say a boatload of economic benefits to the community and is just a treasured natural resource. Further, you know, the chart that was shown earlier of all of the different entities that have to stay within certain phosphorus loading limits, if this sediment load, phosphorus load was released, it would be a slap in the face to all of those entities that have to stay within the regulated amounts. It would undo what they're having to work day in and day out to maintain. It just makes no sense at any level other than appeasing the desire of whoever is wanting this drawdown. There has to be other ways to take care of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, we have a couple comments on the data centers. First one is Stephen
I'll help you.
Woolajon,
Name is Stephen Wadega,
Wadega. Oh my
1226
gosh.
US Highway 63, Baldwin.
Thank you.
Thank you for adding public comment this meeting. I was kind of not happy when I seen the original agenda. 12-month moratorium is needed. 6 months is not enough time to research and educate yourself on the issues regarding data centers in order to protect the health and safety of the St. Croix residents. As a resident of Aaron Prairie and chairing a committee that dealt with the solar issues, I speak from experience because we put a 12-month moratorium in place. And it took every bit of that 12 months with weekly meetings to get that solar ordinance in place and now be able to put a battery ordinance to the board in July. I don't know enough to speak about issues on data centers because I haven't done the research and educated myself on the issue. I mean, I could sit up here for hours in solar and educate you everything because I've been doing that for the last 14, 15 months. But what I do understand about data centers is that there's a lot of environmental concerns, there's electricity concerns, and there's water concerns. Is the water going to be recirculating or just keep pulling from it? Water isn't a resource that we have forever and ever and ever. It's been released that in 2025, Amazon's data centers have used 2.5 billion, that's billion would it be, 2.5 billion gallons of water. And, you know, this obviously Hammond's is a small end of things and whatever is coming or whatever, but we have a lot of ag land here. We have a lot of stuff that people are going to be looking at us for. So unless you want to, I wrote these notes very quickly. They do take a lot of electricity. And the question is ratepayers going to subsidize all electricity of these needs? Are we going to have to endure longer and more peak times without electricity because there's not enough electricity to go around? Will these data centers thrive on it? I mean, unless you want to live like the Amish and not have electricity, you know, you got to do something about that. And ratepayers shouldn't be subsidizing it. Water is also needed to survive. Without water, we cannot survive. So that's key too. So protections need to be put in place, and you guys need to take the time to do the research and educate yourselves on all the issues so that you can put something in place that actually works for the St. Croix County residents. Thank you.
Really appreciate the numbers you brought into there. Really paying attention. It's very helpful regardless of the outcome. Wish we knew what we need.
Hi, I'm David Meyer, 1385 200th Street, Baldwin, Wisconsin, Aaron Prairie Township. Please adopt a 12-month moratorium on data centers in St. Croix County to allow yourselves to learn more about data centers and the associated concerns. A moratorium on data centers will have no impact on other types of businesses considering doing business in St. Croix County. As I look around the people who are attending here tonight, I see people that have been here, that some of us have had different viewpoints on other activities. We've been here in front of you guys many times over the last year. And I think it speaks volumes that we're here with a common viewpoint on this, that we want a moratorium regardless of how we felt about other issues. I think that's a key point, that there's a lot of support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody that did not have an opportunity to speak that wants to speak? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Jim Green. I live at 170 Starwood in the town of Hudson. Two quick comments on the water drawdown. Has the Corps of Engineers been consulted on this? I believe they have say on the entire watershed of Mississippi and St. Croix. So if they haven't been contacted, I think somebody should before you go any further. The other thing on the data center, real quick, is county rejects the solar farm, and how can you want to have a data center when you're reducing the amount of power that's being generated by XL Energy? That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Come on up.
Good evening. Thank you for adding public comment to this meeting tonight. My name is Laura Connard. I'm a resident of Aaron Prairie. I spoke at the meeting last week, and I'm just here to reiterate the same comment. Please consider the minimum 12-month moratorium on the data centers. Steve said it well. It takes time to do the research. It takes time to draft a good ordinance that's going to have some teeth and protect the residents. I was at one of the meetings that Sue Curtis was at earlier last week. There was a lot of information that's out there. There are sample ordinances that people are sharing. If you don't have them and you need some help getting them, I would be happy to help with that aspect. And as the gentleman said before, I don't think this county has rejected the solar farm or solar project. I hope you will. I hope you'll put some strong teeth to keep the data centers out of here, and I hope you'll keep fighting that industrial solar farm for us as well, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Yep, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Brook, 1901 Twilight Lane, Hudson, Wisconsin. I've taught for years about a course on change, and this is a very great example of change. Change leaders have been involved for some time on data centers, but the recipients of change have not had that opportunity, especially those in smaller communities. I urge that we have a moratorium so that we can do further study and the recipients of change voices be heard and we be educated together before we move forward. This is a very serious issue, and I ask for your consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Anyone else?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Scott Holmes. I'm a resident of 1025 6th Street in Hudson. I also ask you to rescind the conditional approval or the drawdown for Lake Malibu. Being a person that likes to kayak and canoe, we've had issues with weeds and algae at the end of Orange Street. That put-in spot there is the one at the end of St. Croix. So adding all that phosphorus, it gets to the point later in the summer where it's disgusting. You don't even feel like you can go in. I also ask you to, for a 12-month, at a minimum, moratorium on the data centers. Those are very complex. If we don't get ahead of I think the gentleman in the red hat said it well, if we don't get ahead of the curve, they're going to come in here with their high-paid lawyers They're going to, first of all, they're going to make all kinds of promises of what the benefits, usually that's smoke and mirrors, and then they're going to bring in their high-priced attorneys and threaten lawsuits and everything else. So please consider a moratorium so we can get ahead of this and really do what's best for all the residents in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Krista Damuth. I live at 625 Klein Drive in Hammond, Wisconsin. I'm going to echo what everyone has said to you guys about putting a moratorium on the data centers. But one thing people don't talk about is some of the physical problems that come along with it. I'm a mental health counselor and I specialize in children and adolescents. And one of the things people aren't talking about is the constant hum, 24/7, 365, and what that does to children's developing brains. We see sleep disturbances, increase in anxiety, increase in depression, and increase in behavioral issues. And that is the last thing this county needs. I've been working in this county for a long time with kids. We do not need that. So I'm asking you guys to do your research on that as well. So you guys know the electricity, the water usage, the sound pollution, the environmental pollution, and also to please consider what it does to the physical health, especially of children. Thank you.
Thank you. We have everybody? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Bonnie Smith, Town of Baldwin. I'm totally unprepared because I didn't know there was open comment, but thank you for opening comments. I just want to echo what I've heard since I got here, that we need a one-year moratorium, and we should be researching every little thing about it. This woman just talked about children's mental health, and I was also starting to research what it does to animals and their everything down to their breeding cycles, and they could be extinct. But I also think that we should research so deeply that you are vetting these people coming in. You are doing a background check on them as if your child were being taken care of by them. So I wasn't prepared, but thank you, and one-year moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. We got everybody covered? All right, we'll close public comment then. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We'll start out then with business item number 1. Resolution directing staff to rescind the St. Croix County's authorization for application of the Lake Malibu drawdown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a lot to say, but I just wanted to follow up from what the committee requested at the meeting last week. So we did reach back out to the Lake Malibu Association about their July 6th meeting, and we offered our facility here and to try to help coordinate it. But they had already set up their meeting for the White Eagle and that for July 6th from 6 to 8 p.m. We did get some more information about what the panel will be during that meeting. So there will be a panel of 3 members. Dendy Lofton would be there from Stantec. Matt Poppleton would be on the panel from Wild Rivers Conservancy. And Dave Rosboom from the DNR would be on the panel. I believe right now that Jeff Lavers would be facilitating the questions to the panel. But it is intended to be completely open to the public so that the public could ask questions. They have reached out to the other dam owners and their elected officials to try to get some of them to come to the meeting as well. Also since then, there was email in the packet from Jeff Lavers speaking on behalf of the Lake Malibu Association. And so that was in the packet, just trying to provide more of the history and the reason why they were going for the drawdown application. Other than that, the conditional approval that we did as part of the drawdown application As part of our email to the Lake Malibu Association, and that, in that email, of course, we did have in there that the county reserves the county reserves the right to withdraw our approval and that if this information showed more hardship in that, or even if it didn't show more hardship, just because we were working with the other 3 municipal elected boards and that were wanting more information. So I'm not going to go through my reasoning for each one of these, but if you have any other questions, otherwise I just wanted to provide that update about the July 6th meeting.
Jason, of the 4 governmental bodies that were asked to consider this, do any of the other entities, was it Town of Hudson, Village of North Hudson, City of Hudson, do any of them have a land and water resource staff like the county does?
No, not necessarily a land and water resource,
Okay.
I mean,
so-
they've got like public works staff, that deal with the sanitary systems or the wastewater treatment plants, like was brought up on the slides earlier, but it's not necessarily a land and water department.
So this governing body has expertise that I think it's fair to surmise others don't. Did anyone from the Lake Malibu Association ask you, or anyone from your staff, to be part of the July 6th meeting, since we do have staff with expertise, and we have a memo that gives us some guidance on this topic?
Yeah, so when we offered the county facility here too, I also offered county staff and that to be in attendance and to be even on the panel, and that, but it seems like everything was already set up. So I have told our land and water administrator about it. And then if he wants to show up, I do plan on it, and that being there and that for the county, so on the 6th.
All right. Well, we haven't spent a lot of time focusing on it, but in our packet in May, we did have a memo from your department that outlines some of the concerns. And I highlighted a couple of the statements. Concern number 1, there's a high potential for significant phosphorus into Lake St. Croix. So we hear that from our paid water experts. Impacts on Lake St. Croix are unknown. Our drawdowns, how we plan to address sediment going forward. Is this something that there's an expectation we're going to keep trying to do? And that there's not adequate monitoring proposed around the drawdown event. It seems like it's one of those things where it's the tap's on or the tap's off, but it's not a drawdown and then test as we go. I don't know what the rest of the supervisors think, but that makes me very uncomfortable with anything other than rescinding the approval. So I'd like to hear.
So some of those items from the May meeting, we did try to address here, and that with the modeling of the phosphorus load drawdown and that downstream from the dam. So everything that we've seen is only up to the dam right now. And so the number 1 here, is, talking about where does that phosphorus go once it hits the St. Croix. Number 2 is in that kind of addressing that concept that is this how we're going to take and handle all of our phosphorus load in the future with constant drawdowns, what that impact's going to be on North Bay. And then a lot of the comments that we've heard in that wanted to have expert informational forum and that they could ask questions to for number 3. And then number 6, which I think is a benefit to everybody involved and all the elected officials, is to get some monitoring so that you actually have factual information in case this ever comes before the committee or one of the other boards, so that we know what the actual impact is. Because there is a dam on this body of water, and I mean, if we were going to be drawing it down and that to do maintenance on the dam, we would definitely do probably a different drawdown, and it probably wouldn't be drawn down for this amount of time. But it's been drawn down twice in the past to work on the dam, and so it could be inevitable in the future that we might need to do a drawdown in order to keep the dam. So that's where that monitoring, if anything was to be approved as far as this drawdown, if it got to that point, would be really beneficial for the county and for the other dam owners.
I mean, I have a couple other questions, but I want to hear what you guys think. Oh, all right, go ahead. In looking at the material provided by the Lake Malibu Association, which, by the way, I think there'd be more people here, but they're having their annual meeting. So unfortunately, those that are against the rescinding are not able to be present. But in their letter from Stantec, they're acknowledging there could be phosphorus that may be mobilized into Lake Malibu. There's, or into the Lake St. Croix. I read it, and there was enough qualifying language in there that it didn't give me the assurances I was hoping we might see. But we continue to get conflicting information from people that are experts, and we have to rely on someone. So, yeah, I would love to, I've rearranged my calendar plan to attend the July 6th meeting, which just happens to be the day before our next full county board meeting. So if we were to decide to move forward on the resolution before us, there would still be opportunities for us to learn more and to have other county supervisors attend and learn more that could affect the vote before the full board. I have a few amendments I'd like to make to the resolution if people are ready to hear that. Anyone? I mean, I don't want to take up all the talk time here. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one point for clarification, Jason, on the, so I know that, I believe that we are the larger of the, out of the four percentage-wise for ownership, but is the maintenance side of it is that mostly all done by the city of Hudson?
Correct, and so the county is only a financial partner when it comes to the maintenance of the dam. The city of Hudson, and that does all the maintenance with their public works crew. The county is a 50% owner in the dam. The city, the village are both 20% owners, and then the town of Hudson is a 10% owner. It's all co-ownership though, so it's not like we have more say because we have more ownership, and that all parties in that have equal say in this case, so.
So as far as when they're doing any work on the dam, do they do notification of all the owners of what's happening, or to keep everybody abreast of what's happening with the dam?
Not day to day, and that they monitor the flows. They are ordered to take and have a normal level and a minimum level, they're doing that. When there is budgetary items and that, like currently they're talking about doing some upgrades to the equipment and that for like the alarms and stuff, and that then they do notify us so that we can budget appropriately. I will say, and that I'll put it in a good word for the city, that it's a really good partnership. It's really affordable, and that I think for the maintenance of a dam of that size, and so everything's been going very smoothly.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I read the resolution before us, directing staff to rescind, and as we were settling in, Supervisor Counter and I were agreeing, we didn't want any of the language to in some way suggest that our community development staff was acting without our direction. It was, I don't know if there's any softening that corporate counsel could offer, but it ultimately will be a part of public record, and we don't want anyone to walk away thinking that somehow there was anything irresponsible or in any way incorrect done by the staff. But the additions that I would like to make is that I think could help the rest of the supervisors understand our rationale here is after the now therefore, I think that's in there, directs the Community Development Director to rescind the authorization application of the drawdown of Lake Malibu. But I also think it's important for us to acknowledge that the reason is centered on that it's our responsibility to establish policies. This is a policy decision which affirms our commitment to protecting our financial investments that we may have made in improving water quality in the St. Croix River. Because I think that is the connective tissue between the conversations we've had. And that universally everyone recognizes, including the people that live on Lake Malibu, they recognize that the health of our region's natural resources is essential to the quality of life for everyone who lives here and visits. But I also think it's important that we send a signal that it's our policy to work in partnership with landowners throughout the Willow River watershed and to reduce pollution flowing into the St. Croix. So that's it. So I don't know, Corp Council. That's our policy of the St. Croix County to work in partnership with the landowners throughout the Willow River watershed, which is everything funnels into Lake Malibu. So they are living with all the upstream effects of the phosphate that's being generated. And I know one of the ordinances that we are wanting to get to, hopefully sooner than later, is the shoreline protection. And perhaps this could be a catalyst for us to work both with the Lake Malibu Association as well as everyone else upstream from Lake Malibu. So.
Yeah, so our county shoreline ordinance, and that wouldn't affect the Lake Malibu properties except for the few that are in the town of Hudson, because the other ones are within the incorporated areas of the village and the city.
So what ordinances would affect the Willow River watershed?
The Willow River watershed, and that would affect, or would be underneath the shoreline zoning ordinance. I'm just saying the properties right along in that Lake Malibu, and that would not be impacted by the shoreline.
Understood.
So, yep.
Understood.
Anything that's in the incorporated areas, so.
Yeah. I can pass on my scribbled notes here, but Court Counsel, do you want to see them, or did you come up with something you could echo back?
I did not. I was trying to type down what you said. So if you could just, or you can give me what you wrote, I can try to put something together quickly. And Supervisor Rice, I think the only language I would likely change is where it says, in exercising its authority to establish policies for county staff. I think if you just say, be it further resolved that the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors affirms its commitment to protecting the financial investments made in improving water quality in the St. Croix River, and recognizes the health of the region's natural resources is essential to the quality of life of those who live, work, and visit St. Croix County, directs the Community Development Director to rescind the authorization for the application of the drawdown of Lake Malibu. And then the next, be it further resolved, that is, it is the policy of St. Croix County to work in partnership with landowners throughout the Willow River watershed to reduce pollution flowing into the St. Croix River, and that county staff action shall be consistent with this goal. Is that appropriate, that last paragraph about the Willow River watershed? Or can we put it in general, work in partnership with the landowners throughout the county?
Yeah. It's very general, you know, I mean, we do work in all the watersheds in the county every year. Generally, it's funding driven, and that which watershed we work in, so.
Those are state programs? Those are where the funds come from, is from the state?
Correct, yep, and that, so it's the DNR, it's a targeted runoff management or a trim grant, and so we had one for the Willow up until the end of 2024. We ended up turning back $160,000 approximately as part of that grant, just because, and that there wasn't enough property owners that wanted to participate in the program. So the Kinnickinnick watershed, we've got a lot more property owners that want to participate, so that kind of goes to where the funding goes. So so that's kind of getting off the agenda topic and that, but that's how we determine where we work, is where we have the funds and where we have people that want to participate.
How much of a match do we have on those, Jason?
And that, so those best management practices, or BMPs, and that we call them for waterways, stream bank projects, and that those are cost shared at 70%. And so then the property owner has 30%.
So how much of it is county tax levy money?
County tax levy dollars, and that is roughly about $30,000 a year for BMPs. And that's the money that goes into the other watersheds. And that if we've got funding from the state to work in the Kinney, for example, we try to get those other dollars to go into a different watershed.
My only point is we're maximizing the state dollars for most of these programs.
And of the state dollars, does that come from the Knowles-Nelson funding, which was not
Nope.
approved in the last?
It does not. And so we applied for another grant, and I don't know, cut me off, council, if we're getting too far off the agenda, but,
we may
and
be,
that, so, but, I mean, we submitted just for another trim grant for the Kinnick watershed, the one that we got 2 years ago was 525,000. We submitted for another 545,000, and that, but the plan and that for the St. Croix wasn't done, so we will lose about 10 points on our application, and so we don't know if we'll be funded for that or not. But we're one of very few counties in that is applying for this funding. And so we're still hopeful that we'll get those funds. But there is some hurdles and some things that are outside of our control on whether or not we can score high enough.
I think there's a thread here that we need to pull in a future meeting about the voluntary nature of complying with pollution management, but we'll deal with that another day. So I'm satisfied with, oh, yeah. Oh, you want me to tap dance there?
I do have it all typed up if you want me to. I could either read it, or I don't know if I could quickly save it in the presentations folder and you can pull it up.
Yep.
Okay, just one moment here. I just saved it. It will be just 1 second.
Oh.
It would be, I corrected it from line 27 down. And it should say affirms, not affirm.
Okay.
Supervisor Rice, does that incorporate? I
Yes.
changed the wording around a little bit, but I think that incorporates the two provisions that you indicated that you wanted added.
Yes, so I'll make that motion as it's been amended.
So we have a motion for resolution to rescind the Lake Malibu drawdown has been copied and put before you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would just like to add that the constituents seem to be in favor of this resolution.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous. So we'll move on to business item number 2, which is discussion regarding the proposed changes to Chapter 15 zoning of the St. Croix County Code of Ordinances.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, a little bit different format than what we normally show because we normally show a complete red line version of the ordinance. But just for keeping things timely and being a little bit more straightforward, we actually put it into an ordinance format here. It's not on the agenda tonight for any action, but in that it just makes the changes very clear. So, the first thing for any data center is to properly define them. And so we've got kind of a general definition, if you will, of a data center as a completely enclosed facility that houses technology infrastructure such as servers, storage, and networking equipment to process, manage, and store data. Supporting equipment typically includes cooling system, power infrastructure, and generation, security systems, and that for on-site activities. So that would be what we would suggest for a general definition. Is there any comments or changes? That is basically the same as Washara's definition, so that's where that came from. Then I think the committee in that expressed some interest in having different size data centers treated differently as far as ordinances go. So small scale was really just like we have here in the county, somebody's server room that is a private data center, just serving the organization's needs that are on that site. Generally in that managed by the company's own IT staff. I tried to put a threshold on that just so that you couldn't have a very private data center all of a sudden get pretty large. And that 50 kilowatts is roughly enough to serve about 50 servers. So I think that would serve a lot of businesses in that needs. Now, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but any Bitcoin or cryptocurrency mining, I threw that in here just because I'm not sure that it matters to the committee or if there's a preference on what kind of data center it is and that, whether it's serving businesses or whether it is doing this digital currency mining. So that is one thing. There is some Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining probably going on in some people's houses too. So that is something to think about. Data center medium scale. So this is more of probably what St. Croix County's power grid could actually support. And so the idea here in that, and all these numbers tonight that I'm going to go through are in here, they're all arbitrary. Data centers, unlike solar and wind and even cell towers, and that we don't have any statutes that are really limiting the county at this time for them, and that, unlike those other uses. So again, these numbers are all arbitrary. I'm just trying to throw out ideas in that, and they can be tweaked to however you might want to do it as a policy decision. So medium scale up to about 3,000 square feet in size. So a lot of our single-family houses, you know, and that are about half of that size or around 2,000 square feet, so it'd be just slightly more than that. Having a power demand of 10 megawatts or less, again, with our current grid, that is what we've been told that we could effectively supply. And those kinds of data centers, and that they kind of operate almost like a cell tower where businesses can co-locate within that facility and then their staff will take them over. It can be multiple businesses just buying cloud storage, you know, and that to be in there as well. But then also in that they could involve Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining. And so I think the biggest thing with that currency mining is if there is a major supply of power being used by these, is that benefiting the people of St. Croix County the same way as if the servers were benefiting the businesses within St. Croix County or the other things that we need. Data center large scale, this is what a lot of our public comments I think are aiming towards. These are the hyperscale data centers. Hyperscale is generally like 50 megawatts or more. Here we've got that they're more than 10 megawatts. So we're, again, a lot more restrictive than what the general standard is. However, we are able to do that because we don't have any statutes that say otherwise. Generally, they have thousands of servers, require advanced cooling systems, and they're the primary use of the property, whereas like a medium scale could have, you know, some other business associated on the site, and it's just occupying a smaller area, you know, maybe 100 by 100 or 150 by 150. So those would all go into the definition portion of the ordinance, is there any feedback on how any of these are defined, or the limits or the sizes?
Can we go back to the 500 kilowatts? Did you say 500 or 50?
50.
Okay.
Yep.
On the line 14, where we talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, I'm going to preface this by saying I don't believe in these at all, and I would not invest a nickel. However, they're legal. And the broader statement, and I think what brings us here, is at the federal level and state level, we are not being governed adequately, in my opinion, on either AI or data centers. So that's what brings us here today. But until such time that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are somehow regulated or managed, I don't know why we would call that out as something separate. But I'd like to know what other people think. I would caution anyone not to invest in it, but I also don't believe in a whole lot of things that people spend their time doing, so.
That's why I threw it in there in that, because of the use of a data center. You know, I mean, the data center in itself is a type of land use, and that, but then what the data center is actually doing. And, you know, from staff's perspective, it would be very difficult to administer that, because how do we know what these servers are doing?
Right.
Again, you'll see throughout here tonight that I'm throwing out a lot of ideas, you know, and that's all it is an idea, so.
Yeah, and I also think as we look at this, this is such a rapidly changing space. I mean, my initial objection to the proposal of a moratorium on data centers is exactly the lack of definition, that we're in a building with a data center. So, you know, any business that might consider that they need a lot of servers might reconsider whether or not St. Croix County is where they want to be. And I think we all agree that that's not what we're trying to do here. Some of the biggest users would be hospitals and educational institutions. So we need to take, I think, a cautious approach in defining. I appreciate that, but I suspect that whatever we adopt going forward, we're probably going to want to revisit it at least once a year, if not more frequently, either because federal or state laws are going to change, and also because our understanding of how these are evolving is changing. So it's sort of like we're in the early days of when automobiles were on the road, and we want to make sure we try not to get people killed. So it's just an overall attitude. So I'd love to know if Corp Counsel or anyone else has an opinion on the whole Bitcoin or cryptocurrency comment.
I have something I would like to add, if you don't mind. I would say that language would be something, or the type of business would go into the conditional use permit. And that might be where it would be better addressed.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I think the proposal is going to come before you, and the committee or the Board of Adjustment could always ask, you know, and that for what the use is or who's going to be served by it too. So, you know, that could be addressed through that conditional use. So, but a small scale, and that wouldn't have a conditional use, so we'd want to remove it from there, and then you could also remove it from a medium scale, and that to allow the conditional use process to kind of flush out what it's being used for.
And these are just a temporary description anyways, because you have to define, even for the moratorium, you have to define what it is that you're having a moratorium on. So this is what the moratorium's on, so it has to be defined somewhere. But once you draft that final ordinance, then at the end of the moratorium, that's going to replace all of this language anyways. So I guess don't get overly hung up on it, as long as it's enough to cover what you're trying to stop.
I was just going to say that I really do prefer corporate counsel's, original ordinance on the moratorium that she sent us.
That's later on in this document. So we'll get to the moratorium language. This is just, we have to define data centers first, and then the moratorium, I think, is on page 2 or 3. So that language is coming. Okay, thank
Would
you.
you like me to jump down to that?
Yeah, why
first?
don't you, Jason?
Okay.
I just want to get a comment in on this too. I think the biggest concern I have over this whole thing is when we're doing the moratorium, you're trying to establish something for things that have little detrimental impact that are going to be vacant from the moratorium. And so when we look at this, I think the most important thing is to first establish the types of units that aren't going to have potential for any detrimental impact. Those types of things that are in typically in school districts, in the county building here, in many of the large corporate businesses that are in St. Croix County, they aren't operating at the same level as things like we looked at down in Durand. Where my concern is not to hold back those types of, so that we're holding back those types of businesses from either establishing or for maintenance or anything else for what they're trying to do. But looking at the detrimental impacts are things like the water issue. Not just if they're drawing water out of the ground and cycling it for the cooling systems and dumping it out. That's a big thing in itself. But even the ones that we've seen where they use an internal cooling system where it's a closed system. But the issues are even with the closed system. Do they have adequate coverage where if they had a system leak failure, do they have a way to capture that so we aren't having groundwater contamination from runoff from the system itself? Are they dealing with when they do recapture and that type of fluids and things, they have to either be recharged or they have to be traded out? Do we model the ordinances so that we're ensuring that they have adequate way to recycle these fluids so that they're being accounted for and that we know that, they aren't going out and being dumped someplace? So that's just like one piece of this. The other ones is, of course, the ideal for the energy consumption and balancing out load factors and the things that the power companies are working on. But one of the things we want to really look at is that there isn't a detrimental impact to the majority of the people that live within the districts that pay their power bills. We don't, we need to ensure that, and I believe there was some state legislation that was passed to try to prevent some of this from happening, but we want to ensure that we look at that and ensure that there's methods behind it that will protect our local electrical consumers so that their power rates aren't varied because of the mass consumption that some of these units can take on. The other thing is the noise factors. Some of these systems that are in the factories or in the buildings, they just use general air conditioning for cooling the systems inside the rooms and the fan systems that are in the computers and the CPUs themselves, where the ones that we look at these larger scale ones use the liquid cooling systems. But to do that, they were using massive fan systems that sat on top of them and generated a considerable amount of noise. And so looking at noise factors, looking at how far out do these things, how far out is this noise field that is generated from it? What's not just in the decibel levels, but also in the frequency levels. Frequencies can make a difference in how far noise can carry through the ground. So there's a lot of things that we really need to consider when we think about all of this. And So the thing, if we're going to do this, the ones that we're disqualifying from the moratorium would be the ones that just absolutely don't have these types of potential negative impacts. And anything that would potentially have the negative impacts, we really need to consider all these things so that we make sure that we're addressing everything. I'm sorry, I can't do public comments anymore. Sorry, sir.
So does the small scale meet chair counters requirements, you think?
Correct, yep. So small scale and that, I believe that would meet what you're saying. And so just to kind of go back to the use table here, and I apologize that the blue bar here is on the bottom. It's just kind of how our table is laid out in the ordinance. But we would propose, and that to kind of break apart, and that each size and identify the kind of permit that would be required. So small scale with a P stands for permitted. So those would be permitted uses in the commercial and industrial districts. The medium scale, that's up to that 10 megawatts in size now, that would be a conditional use permit in I-1 and I-2, but there would be the risk in that Chair Coner talked about. And then large scale, and that would be a conditional use in I-2. I-1 is kind of light industrial, or that's what it's called. I-2 is heavy industrial. So that's kind of the difference. And so that I-2 district, that's generally where we're going to see our larger factories and our larger power consumers as well. But yeah, that small scale, that would be separated.
And this is just an example of how you would do it. This would be fully defined in the final version of ordinance.
Do we have a map that shows the I-2 districts in the county?
And that is our zoning map. So there's only, I don't know about I-2 specifically, but there's 7 properties that are currently developed. So there's no vacant industrial lots within the county. The parcels that are zoned industrial are Semstone to the southwest of New Richmond. Then, and that you have TD&I cable right on the north side of 94, and that they're one. You've got Murtha Sanitation's transfer station just south of Baldwin. And then you've got Haas, sand and gravel over on 128. And then there's 2 well-developed gravel pits. So,
and those are zoned within our governance authority as a county, as opposed to the areas in the county where we don't do zoning. Is that
correct?
Am I understanding?
Correct. Yep. So, and that we don't go into the incorporated areas, and that or the towns that have their own zoning.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
I have a question just to put this in perspective. So the data center that got their conditional use permit in the village of Hammond, is that considered a small scale data center? Medium?
That would fall into the medium
Okay.
category, because I believe that one was 6 megawatts. So in this, also, we proposed, some ordinance text, some general standards, and that one of the things, and that regardless of if it's small, medium, or large, again, because the law doesn't specifically talk much about data centers right now, is that the county can take and require it to be a self-contained system so that they're not using water for cooling. We can set a noise level in that, so 60 dBA is basically the noise level of a classroom, or I'm probably even talking around that level right now. And so the L50 standard means that you're exceeding that 60 dBA 50% of the time. And so that's just kind of an average, if you will. So also, that it meets the electrical code, has adequate off-street parking, and has data centers. So the way that this was laid out just for a first review is 2-phase really, or a 2-prong approach. And that anytime you got and really we only got 2 choices with zoning, and that to do this, you can take and require a zoning change to a specific district. That's one tool. And then the other tool is the conditional use. And so even if we do a moratorium, and those are likely going to be the two options that we have to come back to, because we don't have a lot of other tools. And that being said, and that I did leave it open down here. So because we only work with the towns, is towns have, or most towns also have adopted village powers. And so under village powers, they can create a licensing ordinance where the town can have some of their own things for addressing emergency management, driveway requirements, that kind of stuff. And so we're kind of leaving it open-ended here that the towns could have some other local control besides the zoning, besides the conditional use. And so really those are your three tools and that you could possibly have. The county could also probably do a licensing ordinance underneath our home rule authority, but really a lot of that same stuff, and that would be laid out in these design standards, A through O for the large scale here. So anyway. So I'm not sure if you wanted me to go through all of this or.
I just caught one thing, Jason, underneath large scales, that would be line 89. E, I think you meant to have the word large instead of medium.
Yeah, copy and paste in a rush.
And just as a general theme, and maybe a process question, and just a level set for everyone, my understanding is we're working through this. We may come to some consensus about where we want this to be, but it would more than likely be on our agenda for next month, potentially as an action item. And if it went so far as to pass our committee, the soonest it would be, pass in July, the soonest it would be before the full county board would be September. Is that correct?
Correct. So, correct.
That's
So.
the calendar process.
Yep. And so any ordinance amendment to Chapter 15 is going to require a public hearing, which is going to require a Class 2 notice in the paper. And so if the committee had the direction to staff that says, geez, you did everything perfect, we like this, then we could get something to the newspaper tomorrow, and that to basically start that notice for our July 9th hearing, okay? Then if the county board doesn't meet in August, we're still pushed out to September. This is really kind of like they do at the state level, intended as like a first review of an ordinance. You could also review it on your July 9th meeting. We could take and schedule the public hearing for the August Community Development Committee meeting, and then it could still land on the September County Board meeting.
So that is a pretty, people may not feel that that's an accelerated path. So thank you for getting us this far. But this is another way of saying that for members of the public here or who may be paying attention, you'll have more at-bats at this. They'll be able to give us more information. We can hear from others. We can look at it in more detail and gather more information, so.
Yep.
All right.
And then Supervisor Swanepoel's mention, we'll have to correct that line 14. It'll need to say 50, is that right? Consumes less than 50?
So, I'm sorry, and that maybe I wasn't clear. So the 500 kilowatts will serve in that roughly 50 servers. So if we had a server room or a data center here with 50 servers in it, it's going to consume about 500 kilowatts of power. So I was trying to create a line, and that clearly defines small, and I think 50 servers is quite a bit. And so, but then between small and medium, it'd be 500 kilowatts to 10 megawatts. That would be our area, which those are more than likely what we could potentially see in St. Croix County because of our grid system that we have and the capacity we have.
Thank you.
Well, in the units that we toured, those were 2 megawatts per trailer.
Yep, so that was an 8 megawatt facility. The one that was proposed in the village of Hammond, and that one's a 6 megawatt. So the 10, that's a completely arbitrary number. I'm just throwing it out there, you know. So as with all these numbers, and, you know, just to kind of jump down here a little bit, you know, what the numbers really help in that is to try to show what could be done. So like right here, any portion of the data center for a medium scale shall be at least 300 feet from any dwelling, and that excluding the owner's own dwelling. So generally in that, there's always that exclusion for if somebody wants to have a data center on their property right next to their home, we don't have that setback. But then for large scale, you know, kind of the same provision could be 500 feet. And those numbers, again, are wide open in that it's up to the policymakers on what you want those to be. Same thing, setback from the road, you know, up here for medium scale, 75 feet, down here and that at 100 feet to provide a little bit more green space in between the road and a large data center. And that the landscaping and green space requirement, you know, normally in industrial zoning is 15%. So we upped that and that to 30% to provide, again, some more green space. They're gonna have to do some screening if this is done the way it's written. Also side and rear lot line setbacks, you know, and that normally that's, you know, 10 to 25 feet, you know, we doubled that. So again, I'm not saying these are the numbers, and that normally industrial can be up to 50 feet in height. We're cutting that back to 30, kind of trying to, you know, box in the size, so.
Oh, Jason, in regards to height, when you're calculating height, do you include rooftop equipment?
And, so no, generally I would say no, and that it's from lowest exposed grade to the top of the peak of the structure. So antennas, chimneys, you know, equipment and that would be on the roof and that would be exempt, so.
Coolers, cooling
Cooling
systems?
towers.
Yeah. That's what
So like the ones that we've seen there in Durand, I mean, that the actual structure went all the way to the top, you know, so that would be from the bottom of the grade up to the top of the cooling system, so, yep.
I'm just thinking if they had one that was in a building and then they put a cooling tower on top of the building.
It's a good point. I mean, we can always specify that here, maximum height, including any, you know, cooling systems, you know, that's, yep. That's a good point.
Just think the concern is that, again, the noise factors and that carrying off from that roof, however far that's gonna reach out.
Right, yep.
One
So,
more question for you, Jason, on now with this, what you're kind of showing us is the amendments and things for the actual ordinance, is that what I'm understanding?
correct, yep. So,
What about now, as far as on the if we're doing a moratorium itself to hold things, what's the, you just kind of go through the notice requirement for that too, for going in and, what we need to do prior to actually, voting for a moratorium?
yep, so the moratorium is, let me get there, is the same process as adopting the ordinance, actually. So in our ordinance, where all those design standards were that we were just going over with the setbacks and stuff, that was in section 15.336. That would be a new section, and that just for data centers. In that same section, we could do 15.396, that's basically at the end of all of our different types of uses, and that would be in that where the moratorium would be. And so then the actual purpose of the moratorium, and that would be to evaluate the zoning ordinance, to evaluate comprehensive plans, and conduct hearings. So that's this text right here. So if you only wanted to do the moratorium, you would only have to create section 15.396 of the ordinance, and that would be it for now. And then you could take and work on the ordinance language and that later on down the road. Or if you say, hey, we want to get something on the books in that you could do this for the large scale facilities, you could adopt an ordinance for the small and the medium scale, and that would be an option. And then you can always amend these. So there's also some other amendments, and that I brought it up at the last meeting about the town of Somerset, talking about self-storage facilities. So that was up there in the use table here as well, not trying to jump all over, but then also conditional uses, whether they would be left in the committee or go to the Board of Adjustment. That's all in this document as well. So to take and honor the town of Somerset's opinion, we would simply strike the Cs in the R1 and the R2 zoning for self-storage facilities. It's not ideal that the Cs are always red in our ordinance, so it looks like we're adding these, but any C is generally in our ordinance already. The ones that are underlined would be the ones that would be added or proposed. So it's not ideal that it's red, put it that way. So that's that. And then basically with the conditional uses going to the Board of Adjustment, we would go into section 15.710, strike out conditional uses before the CDC. So all that text goes away. And then we would basically copy and paste that same text into section 15.715, which is the powers and the duties of the Board of Adjustment. There was a couple small chunks in here that talked about the notice process and the public hearing process that I removed because it already talks about it underneath the Board of Adjustment. But otherwise, all the standards are the same. This is really the same text. So.
Right. So chapter 15 has 3 sections. Let's go back to the moratorium though. So section 4 is the moratorium part. Section 1 is the definition part. So my recommendation for you though is to add the definitions and then do the moratorium just for the medium and large scale. So first define what they are, and then only do the moratorium on the medium and large ones. Because small ones would be, the government center wouldn't have been allowed to be built under that moratorium then. So we don't want to exclude every single business from putting in their own data centers. That's why we've defined what a small one is. So if that small one meets with your approval, then that's what a normal business would expect to have within their facility. And then the rest of it, 2 and 3, we can continue to work out those details. So I don't know, Chair, if you want to take like maybe the 3 sections and get like subvotes on those 3 sections of what we want to do. So do the moratorium data centers first, then do the storage, and then do the Board of Adjustment.
And if I can make one comment about the definitions, I just was quickly doing some research because obviously I hadn't looked at it until today. And we probably should strike the information regarding does not involve Bitcoin or cryptocurrency from the definitions, only because in Wisconsin, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is legal. We could somehow address the impacts of those facilities, and we could even, in the future, upon research, have a separate use in the use table for cryptocurrency mining facilities that would require certain conditional use permits because of the impacts that they would have. But we probably should remove Bitcoin and cryptocurrency from the definitions just because we shouldn't be saying you can't have that at all when it is legal in Wisconsin.
So again, what we're looking for, we have to establish the definitions so we know that part. We're looking then with the definitions in mind, that will give us the ability then to create the moratorium for the medium and large scale and the time.
And he's referring to the length or time of the moratorium, so you can choose 6 or 12 months.
Some people want 1 year, so I've been reading.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we're focused on definitions, I would like to see requirements, and I'm open to input from Administrator Witt or anyone, decommissioning requirements, especially for the large scale. and frankly, for the medium and small, I mean, some of these are privately owned, and that's what we're hearing about what's going on in Hammond, and I don't want to diminish the legitimate concerns people have. But when it comes to, you know, private ownership, I really feel that we need to include in any of our ordinances decommissioning requirements. So I don't know, is that something we could require in a bond to make sure it's covered?
So, I mean, that's a great question, and that's why you do a moratorium, to figure out what that answer should be. So the only question then is, do you think that's necessary on the small scale ones? Because what I'm recommending is that you allow small scale data centers, because that's what we have in this building. That would be that definition.
I'll also add, we hear about non-disclosure agreements that have mostly happened with the large and hyperscale, but that seems to me to be a practice that is not transparent. And so that would be something I would want to include in the large scale.
We would never sign one. The county wouldn't sign one.
No, but it is the practice of landowners. So the history, as I understand it, is that whether it's Google or Amazon, they would go in and offer money for a tract of land. The landowners, sometimes very generous offers, if the landowners knew it was Google or Amazon or Meta, they'd jack up the price. So the NDA was an effort on their part to lower the price of the land deal. But the net effect is that people didn't know what was coming to their communities, so.
I don't know that we can prohibit people from contracting, because it is legal to contract. But again, that is something in the 6 or 12-month moratorium time where we would research and find out what are the possibilities for the conditions or the performance standards that we require. And if we could do something like that, that would be something we would investigate as staff.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion. Not yet.
I just want to make sure that I have everything for the what we're doing here. If I could, just 1 second, I want to clarify. So we talked about definitions, we talked about, again, the moratorium for medium and large scale and the length of time. What other sections?
So section 1 is the definitions. Section 4 is the moratorium. So those are the two sections that we want to make sure are included right now. Anything else that they have to have right now, or the rest of it we can build during the moratorium?
And I don't even think that you need to take an action on it tonight unless you're trying to get it to public hearing.
I think we're just
in
trying to gather
July.
the consensus, Jason.
Yep,
So
right.
they're gonna vote on it, and that's gonna give you the direction of what
Okay.
to bring back in a
Okay.
formal chapter. So,
Well, if we're not looking to vote on it tonight,
Chair, I think it'd be helpful, for me anyways, it'd be helpful to know what you guys think. So, I mean, I'm all for you guys voting on what pieces that you want to see in an ordinance and a public hearing at the next available meeting.
Yeah.
So your vote is really just telling me whether there's consensus on it or there's silent dissent that I don't know about.
okay. So then what we're looking for is a motion to take the definitions as currently drafted under the small scale to define that, and also under the section 4 for a moratorium to allow us time to work out the ordinances for medium and large scale for a 1-year period.
Mr. Chair, per Corp Council and that, can we change the definition of small scale and remove the highlighted text here and does not involve Bitcoin or cryptocurrency mining? So it would just be a
So-
period after KW, kilowatt?
So noted, yes.
Okay.
So we'll look for, you want to do the motion?
Try.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to adopt section 1, the definitions of small, medium, and large-scale data storage units And I'd also like to propose that we adopt Section 4 and impose a 12-month moratorium.
I would like to uncouple.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second, go ahead.
I'd like to amend that motion to uncouple it so that we discuss Section 4, the moratorium, in a separate motion. And I think I need a second for that, so that leaves only, sorry, all eyes on you.
Don't think you can amend a motion that's pending. This is not official motions right now anyways, because it's not a action item. So if you guys just want to discuss, and then
I'll
we'll
just tell you
figure out
why.
what you're
I
doing.
think we need to think through when the clock is starting. Because the way I read this, that even if it's even if we were to back up and say 6 months, I don't think the clock would start until September would be the earliest.
Correct.
So then we're talking about 6 months from September. And I know that there are businesses that will be affected by this, even on the small end. So,
But I think that the moratorium would end if we got an ordinance in place.
is that your understanding?
Correct.
That the moratorium stops once we get our ordinance adopted?
Yes,
Yes.
the language says the moratorium shall be in effect for a period of either 6 or 12 months from the date this ordinance is published, which is the effective date, or until the county board adopts amendments to this ordinance or rescinds the moratorium, or both.
So I'm
And-
confused.
Yeah, the moratorium would only apply to the medium and large scale, so a small scale data would not be affected by the moratorium. And that's why, if you're gonna go to a 12-month moratorium, I really recommend that you exclude the small, because I agree, there's probably a business that wants to build in St. Croix County somewhere before that 12 months would be up.
Yeah, it's not just the builders, it's the suppliers, it's the electricians and those that provide materials. So it is a growth business for those businesses. But, so help me understand how this works.
I can do that. So if we go back up to, let's see, so the beginning will say, St. Croix County enacts the following moratorium. Notwithstanding any other provision in this chapter, there shall be a moratorium on the receipt and applications and granting of permits or approvals for the placement of construction of medium and large data centers. So you would add the words medium and large in line 113 before data centers. Then that would exclude the moratorium on small data centers, and so they would be able to be permitted use under the ordinance based on the other language that is included in the other sections.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, because the clock gets pushed out anyway, I know we're gonna get a lot of public input, and we're gonna hear from businesses that are affected as well. So, I mean, we're just looking for consensus here. I would still go on the side of 6 months, because as I've said in other meetings, the real teeth is in the ordinance. That's what's really gives us power. And just the practical reality that the vast majority of the land that would be applicable to this isn't attractive for a data center anyway. It would be, they're looking for a power source, and we don't oversee the zoning on all of the vast majority of the communities here. So, I don't know if I said it clearly last month.
Well, and I was thinking, I never know when I'm supposed to speak.
Now, right now.
Thank you. So I was thinking with the 12 months, that we would still continue to fast track, because when I read the language here, it says that if we adopt an ordinance, then the moratorium goes away. So if we keep working hard, we can fall in with the 6 months, but with the 12 month, then we don't have to go through and create a new one. That's all I was thinking. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, the moratorium would be up to the 6 months or up to the 12 months. But once you finish your work, the moratorium ends as you adopt the finished work product. So whether that's 8 months or whenever, that's when the moratorium would be over.
Yeah, with the speed of this business, the work may never end. I mean, we're already seeing data centers transform what they're doing to to respond to the pushback that they're getting, and coming up with new technology. It's happening really fast. My son-in-law works in this business, so he's telling me about the new developments, but, so, anyway, okay.
So any further discussion? So let's just repeat back where we're at.
Yeah, so I think the current motion that's on the floor is to approve the definitions minus the crypto thing, and then a 12-month moratorium on medium and large data centers. That's, Mr. Chair, what I believe your motion currently is.
Okay, thank you. And we have a motion and a second. So any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimous.
All right. Yeah. All right, thank you. So now we'll go back to the other fun sections in Chapter 15. And that's going to be the storage, and Jason will go over that again. And then we'll wrap up with that BOA language deletion at the end.
Yep, so the Town of Somerset's memo that they sent, that requested, so since the Town of Somerset is under county zoning, and that they have the ability to try to take and change the county's ordinance, and the Town of Somerset, had one self-storage facility here in the last, few months, and that was very contentious amongst their citizens, and now we've, got another one that's kind of coming, so I believe that is the reasoning behind their ask to the committee. So if we did not want self-storage facilities, so these are your mini storage kind of businesses in the R1 and the R2 zoning districts, we would simply remove them as a conditional use, and then it would be not allowed except for in the commercial districts, which would be a conditional use permit in C1 as it is now, and then a land use permit in C3. So that would be the only thing we would have to change if the committee wanted to do so.
Now, the Town of Somerset requested it, but this would affect all the townships under the
It
county
would affect
zoning.
all of the towns, yep. So what I've done in the past when we're doing ordinance amendments like this is I bring them to the Wisconsin Towns Association meeting. The next one, and that is usually towards the end of July, I believe. And so that would be, something that we would normally gather input from all the towns at that meeting on these ordinance changes if they have any, so.
Well, the township board met last night, and there was another big group of people there that were very concerned about this issue. So speaking on their behalf, I definitely would like to see this happen.
Okay.
Is this one that, again, that what you're looking for is an approval of this tonight?
And that just to take and come up with a consensus, that this is something that you'd like to pursue in this ordinance amendment as well, so.
They're all Chapter 15, and so we're going to package all these together into one big bundle. So it's probably going to be the August Community Development Committee meeting that we'll have the public hearing on this, because then we'll be able to get shared it with all the Wisconsin towns at the Wisconsin Towns Association meeting, which will be in July, because I don't want to take any action before the towns have had a chance to weigh in on it. So that delay is good. And then September County Board, which is what we've been planning all along anyways. So with all of these, it'll be a public hearing in August.
Okay.
And I think this is an excellent idea, and especially in light of the growth of our county, that we get these facilities located in a specialized area. So
I would agree again, and I'm especially with the administrator for making sure that we address this with all of the towns so that they have full understanding. I think the other thing that would be prudent would be to take the language of this and do a summary and get that out to all of the towns that are currently under county zoning, so they have an opportunity to do a review prior to the meeting, so they aren't kind of blindsided at the meeting. So having that information up front and let them know that we'll be addressing it at the Towns Association meeting.
Okay. And then, so are we good there? Yeah. Supervisor Swanepoel.
So this self-storage,
Yep.
what does it fall under? Is it under the small, medium, large?
No.
Where does it fall in?
This is totally separate from the data center conversation, so this is only for self-storage. And so self-storage, and that could be, I'll call it a 40 by 80 building and that with different units on it, or it could be a 20-acre complex. So, yep. Yep.
Places that people store their boats or their Beanie Baby collections or, whatever they might have.
Their stuff.
Yep. And I will add that these two were changed in March of 2025, and so it was a fairly recent change. Okay. Then we're into section 5 and section 6. Section 5 is just striking of the conditional uses from the Community Development Committee as far as one of your tasks. And then section 6 is the addition of the conditional use permits underneath the task of the Board of Adjustment. So, and again, this language is virtually the same in that there was just some duplicate text for the notice and the public hearing because it's already addressed by the BOA, so that was removed. So, and that text is already right here. That's the text I'm talking about that was duplicated. So number 2. For some reason, I'm having a hard time highlighting just that, but so otherwise it's the same text.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the other sections minus the first one and the fourth one that we've already worked on.
And also, so basically you're looking at just 5, 6, and then the self-storage stuff. You would not be doing section 3, which talks about the design standards of data centers. That would wait. So section 5 and 6 is conditional uses, and then the changing of the use table for self-storage facilities under section 2 to remove conditional use in R1 and R2 zoning districts.
Yeah, think less about the technical language and just, do you want to eliminate the storage units in R1 and R2 districts, yes or no? And then, do you want to move the conditional use permits back to the Board of Adjustment?
Yes to that. So moved.
I'll second that.
We need help sometimes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Would the committee have, just as long as we're talking about this, would you have any objection to us changing this red C in the actual use table to some other color so that it doesn't align with our red text in that when we're making amendments?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Okay, so
'cause it
we'll
looks
bring
like a
that back
penalty.
as some other color.
Yeah.
Is there any preferred colors?
Pink.
Oh, there's not, yeah, true, so, yeah, it'll be short-lived. So we'll go
They have
purple or
blue
something.
already.
Okay, that's it?
thank you very much for your input tonight. It's helpful for the staff to hear your discussion so that we can get you an ordinance that meets your intent.
Thank you. So I believe that finalizes our two business items for tonight. Is there any request for future agenda items? Seeing none. Any announcements?
Yeah, so we'll have two rezones in July, on July 9th. One's in Emerald, one's in Rush River, just so that the committee's aware.
Rezones. All right. Oh, what's that? Go ahead.
I just wanted to express appreciation for fellow board members making this time available, and especially to our staff and the public that came to give comment. This was not on our calendar, and we made it happen in 1 week, so I think we all owe them a debt of thanks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So the date of our next meeting
Sorry,
is...
Mr. Chair, I missed you. So on the announcements too, and that Tim Stieber, our Land and Water Conservation Administrator, put together a PowerPoint for the July County Board meeting. So that is on the agenda for County
Good.
Board.
Thank you. That's been important. So the date of the next meeting then will be July 9th. Is that correct? Okay. 2026. And 7:01, we'll adjourn. Thank you.